Welcome to Let's Talk About Wellness, the podcast from Providers for Healthy Living.
Yeah, so, okay, before we even really dive into the science today, I want to just paint a picture for everyone because I think a lot of you listening are going to feel this, like, right in your chest.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so picture this, right? You are 35 years old. You are a totally capable, intelligent adult. Like, you hold down a job, you pay your
I do
taxes.
all the adult things, right?
Exactly, all the typical adult things. But you just had an absolute tear-inducing meltdown because your Wi-Fi cut out for like 10 seconds while you're trying to send an email.
Yeah.
And now you are sitting in the aftermath of that reaction in this massive shame spiral. You are completely overwhelmed, just staring at the router and wondering, why can't I just control my reactions? Why is every tiny little friction in life so much harder for me than it is for everyone else?
I love that you started with that scenario. I really
Mm.
do. It just perfectly captures the invisible, exhausting inner battle that we are zeroing in on today.
It is exhausting, yeah.
Because we are exploring the hidden, most misunderstood side of adult ADHD. For so long, the conversation has just been about losing your keys on the way out the door.
Right, or like spacing out during a meeting or something. Yeah.
Exactly. But today is about the overwhelming emotions, that relentless inner critic, and most importantly, how you can finally build a life that actually fits the way your brain is wired.
Wait, let me stop you right there, though, because I always thought ADHD was just, hyperactive little boys who couldn't sit still in math class.
That is the classic stereotype.
Right, that is the stereotype we have all been fed. So why are we talking about adult emotional meltdowns over a Wi-Fi connection? Like, is that actually ADHD?
It is, and that stereotype is honestly the most common myth out there.
Yeah.
And it does so much damage because it keeps adults from understanding their own brains.
Huh. Really?
Yeah, we have to completely reframe how we look at this condition. Emotional dysregulation, these massive sweeping feelings, that is actually a core feature of ADHD.
I had no idea.
Yeah, the research shows it affects somewhere between 30 to 70% of adults with the condition.
Wow, that is a huge percentage.
It is. But to really understand why, we have to drop the clinical jargon and just look at what is physically happening in your neurology. So think of your brain like a massive symphony orchestra.
Okay, symphony orchestra. I can picture that.
Right. So your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain right behind your forehead that is responsible for logic, planning, impulse control, that is your conductor.
Okay, the conductor, got it.
And then you have the amygdala, which is the emotional alarm system of the brain. Let's call the amygdala the percussion section.
The drums, nice.
Exactly, the drums. So in a neurotypical brain, the conductor steps up to the podium, raises the baton, sets the tempo, and tells the percussion exactly when to play and how loud to be. Everything is organized and calm.
So the conductor is keeping all those big emotions in check.
Precisely. But in an ADHD brain, there is a chronic lack of dopamine and norepinephrine.
Those are chemicals, right?
Neurotransmitters, they essentially keep the whole orchestra synchronized. But because those chemicals are naturally low, your conductor is basically asleep at the wheel.
Oh, no.
Or at the very least, they're running incredibly late to the podium.
Oh, wow. So if the conductor is asleep, the percussion section just starts going completely rogue.
Yes. The amygdala detects a stressor, like the Wi-Fi dropping, and the percussion section just starts pounding away on the timpani drums, fast and loud, before the logical conductor has even picked up the baton to say, hey, everyone calm down, it's just a router, give it 10 seconds.
That makes so much sense.
Right. That is why you can feel perfectly fine one moment and completely emotionally flooded the next. You aren't being dramatic. Your nervous system is genuinely firing an intense, full-body emotional response before your reasoning center can even filter it.
That shame spiral makes so much sense. Like, you react, the percussion is blaring, and then the conductor finally wakes up 5 minutes later, looks around at the mess, and you just feel incredibly embarrassed.
Exactly. You're just left dealing with the aftermath. And because that amygdala is firing so loudly over a Wi-Fi router, I mean, imagine what it does when the stressor involves another human being.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
This brings us to a phenomenon that affects up to 99% of adults with ADHD, which is rejection sensitive dysphoria, or RSD.
Hold on, let's unpack that for me. Rejection sensitive dysphoria. I mean, isn't literally everyone afraid of rejection?
Sure, nobody likes it.
Right, nobody likes being criticized or dumped. So how is this different from just normal human insecurity?
It's just on a completely different scale. Dysphoria basically just means an intense state of unease. but the sources point out something totally stunning about how this actually works physically.
Okay, what is it?
Functional neuroimaging suggests that the ADHD brain processes social rejection using the exact same neural pathways that are activated by actual physical pain.
Wait, really? Physical pain, like touching a hot stove?
Yes, exactly like that. So let's say you send a text to a friend and they take hours to reply, or your boss gives you a totally neutral, unsmiling look during a presentation.
Which happens all the time.
Right. For a neurotypical brain, that might cause a brief moment of social anxiety. But for the ADHD brain, because of that hyperreactive amygdala we talked about, it triggers a visceral, physical threat response.
That sounds awful.
It is. You don't just feel anxious, you feel a sudden wave of intense emotional pain, maybe chest tightness or nausea. It just hits you like a freight train.
Okay, but if these emotions are hitting people like a freight train on a daily basis, how on earth are they hiding it?
That is the big question.
Right, and why are so many people, especially women, only finding out they have ADHD in their 30s or 40s or even 50s? It seems like this would be incredibly obvious.
It goes right back to that hyperactive boy stereotype you brought up earlier. Historic clinical research, especially in the 70s and 80s, it focused almost exclusively on white, hyperactive male children.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the diagnostic criteria were literally built around them. But women and girls, for instance, they more commonly present with internal, inattentive symptoms.
So what does that look like then? If they aren't bouncing off the walls in math class, what are they doing?
They are staring out the window daydreaming, or they're highly anxious perfectionists. And because society places such heavy expectations on girls to be, organized, compliant, quiet, they develop elaborate systems to mask their neurodivergent traits.
Masking, yeah.
Right. Masking is essentially observing how neurotypical people behave and just mimicking it to survive socially. They are like swans, right?
Yeah.
Gliding elegantly on the surface, but paddling furiously underneath just to keep up.
The cognitive load of that must be unbelievable.
It is entirely exhausting.
Just constantly pretending to be neurotypical, monitoring every single reaction, triple-checking every email so you don't look careless. I mean, I get exhausted just thinking about it. That sounds like a fast track to chronic burnout.
It absolutely is a fast track to burnout. And the cost of that masking is often decades of being misdiagnosed.
Really? With what?
Well, women frequently go to the doctor completely exhausted and get treated for anxiety, depression, or mood disorders. But those treatments never fully work because the root cause, the ADHD, is completely missed.
But I imagine this diagnostic bias isn't just limited to gender, right?
Oh, not at all.
If the whole system was built around one specific type of kid, a lot of people must be falling through the cracks.
Yes, it is a massive systemic issue. This diagnostic bias deeply affects Black, Latin, and Indigenous individuals. We see this in the clinical literature all the time.
How so?
Symptoms that might be viewed as just quirky or spacey in a white child are frequently and unfairly pathologized as defiant behavior or attitude problems in children of color.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly unfair.
It is. Because of systemic biases, the exact same neurology is interpreted as a discipline issue rather than a medical one.
So the baseline for what's considered acceptable is already so incredibly narrow.
Exactly. And we also see major intersections with the LGBTQ+ community. When you are already navigating environments that aren't inclusive, the stress of hiding your neurodivergence compounds with minority stress.
Right, that just layers on top.
Yeah. The tragedy is that when society demands a very specific, rigid type of compliance, anyone who naturally falls outside that window just gets marginalized.
Which means when someone from these groups finally gets the correct diagnosis in adulthood, it must be this massive, complicated wave of emotion.
So it really is.
It must be like, oh, thank goodness, I'm not broken, I'm not lazy. But then immediately followed by, what could my life have been if someone had just noticed this 20 years ago?
That transition is profound. We actually call it late diagnosis grief.
Late diagnosis grief, okay.
Yeah, to really understand it, think of it like a memory hallway. Imagine you are walking down a long hallway lined with photographs of your past memories.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
For your whole life, you've walked down that hallway and interpreted those pictures as evidence of your personal failures. There is the photo of the college classes you dropped, the friendships that faded because you couldn't keep up with the texts, the jobs you struggled to maintain.
Yeah, and you just blame yourself for all of it.
Right. You viewed all of it through a lens of, I just didn't try hard enough.
And then the diagnosis hands you a completely new set of glasses.
Yes. You have to walk down that hallway again, touch every single photograph, and reprocess those memories.
Yeah.
You have to realize you weren't lazy. You weren't a failure.
You were just unsupported.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You were navigating a world built for neurotypical brains, completely unsupported, fighting executive dysfunction without a manual. Mourning the accommodations you never got and the heavy self-criticism you endured is really necessary part of the healing process.
That is so heavy, but so important.
It is. And speaking of getting the right support, for those of you listening in Ohio who are looking for a safe space and professional support, you can find our team at providersforhealthyliving.com.
Okay, coming back to that heavy self-criticism and the inner critic. Let's say you're caught in one of those ADHD shame spirals we talked about with the Wi-Fi router.
Right, the meltdown.
Standard mental health advice would say, go to therapy and do CBT, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy.
That's usually the go-to, yes.
You write down your negative thoughts on a worksheet, find the evidence against them, and debate your brain until you think positively. So, does that actually work for an ADHD brain?
Well, here is a surprising twist from the clinical literature. Traditional CBT can actually backfire for adults with ADHD, especially those with deeply internalized symptoms.
Wait, really? Because CBT is like the gold standard for everything. Everyone tells you to do CBT. Why would it backfire?
Let's bring it back to our orchestra analogy. Traditional CBT requires a very high degree of sustained executive function.
Okay, so the conductor needs to be working.
Exactly. It asks you to catch a negative thought, track it, evaluate the evidence logically, and rewrite it, all in real time. That requires the conductor of your brain to be wide awake, grab the baton, and actively fight the percussion section.
But we already established that the conductor is asleep.
Right. Remember, the ADHD brain's conductor is already running low on dopamine fuel.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah. When you are told to do highly structured homework, like filling out a thought record worksheet at 8 p.m. after a long, exhausting day of masking and you inevitably forget, or you just don't have the executive energy to initiate the task, what happens?
You fail the therapy homework.
Yes.
And then that just gives your inner critic even more ammunition. You sit there thinking, see, I can't even do therapy right. I really am broken. It's just a secondary shame spiral.
Exactly. It triggers a therapy failure cycle. Plus, you can't just logic your way out of the intense physical pain of rejection sensitive dysphoria. You can't worksheet your way out of a visceral nervous system response.
So what do you do instead then?
Because of this, neurodivergent affirming practices lean heavily into alternatives like acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT.
How is ACT different from CBT?
ACT uses a technique called cognitive diffusion. Instead of exhausting yourself trying to debate a thought like, I'm lazy or I'm a disaster, you simply let the percussion section play without trying to force the conductor to stop them.
You just let them play.
Yeah, you step back from the thought. You shift the phrasing from I am lazy to I am having the thought that I'm lazy.
Oh, just adding that little buffer phrase, I am having the thought.
Yes, you don't have to win a debate with your brain. You don't have to prove the thought wrong. You just let the thought exist as a temporary mental event, just words your brain is producing in a moment of stress while you keep moving forward towards your values.
That sounds a lot less exhausting.
It is. You unhook from the fight entirely. Now, while we're talking about these specific medical and therapeutic approaches, I need to share this. This podcast is for educational purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical or mental health advice. Please consult a qualified professional for diagnosis and treatment. If you or a family member are in immediate crisis, please call a crisis hotline. Dial 988 in the U.S., call 911, or go to the nearest emergency room for assistance.
Okay, so I love this idea of unhooking from the thoughts with ACT. We step back, we say, I'm having the thought that I'm a disaster, and we don't fight it.
Right.
But practically speaking, the laundry still needs to get done.
It does.
The bills still have to get paid. You can diffuse from the thought all you want, but the physical reality of a messy house is still there.
Very true.
How does someone with ADHD actually manage the heavy lifting of daily chores without feeling like a total failure every time the dishes pile up?
This is where we bring in some deeply encouraging practical philosophy. It's based on therapist Casey Davis's concept of struggle care. And the very first rule you have to memorize is this: care tasks are morally neutral.
Morally neutral. Okay, challenge me on this, because having a messy kitchen filled with dirty plates feels bad. It feels like I'm doing something wrong, like I'm a bad adult.
I know it feels bad functionally, but it has absolutely no bearing on your worth as a human being, a parent, a spouse, or a friend.
It's hard to separate the two.
It is hard, but think about it. Vacuuming doesn't make you a good person, and not vacuuming doesn't make you a bad person. It just is a cycle. You clean your kitchen because it makes it easier for you to make coffee the next morning, not because it proves your morality to the world.
That is a big perspective shift.
It really is. Once you strip the moral shame away from chores, everything changes. And to help with the sheer overwhelm of deciding what to do, Davis uses two brilliant metaphors. The first is the cupcake prioritization.
Okay, I'm listening. Walk me through the cupcake.
Think of your daily responsibilities as a cupcake. The base of the cupcake represents basic safety, health, and comfort. Did you take your medication? Did you drink water? Is your immediate environment safe? Are the kids fed? That is the base.
Okay, and what's the rest?
The icing on the cupcake is aesthetic cleanliness. You know, the organized sock drawers, the perfectly folded laundry,
Yeah.
the Instagram-ready living room.
The stuff that looks nice but isn't strictly necessary.
Exactly. If you only have the executive function energy today to bake the base, you have succeeded perfectly. You don't always need icing.
I feel like that alone takes a massive weight off. Like, you're allowed to just have the base. You kept yourself alive and safe, and that is a complete success. What's the second metaphor?
Glass versus plastic balls. Life is a constant juggling act, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But not all the responsibilities you are juggling weigh the same. Some of the things you are throwing in the air are glass balls. If you drop them, they shatter.
So things like taking critical medication, feeding yourself.
Right, or keeping your employment. Those are glass. But a lot of things we stress over are actually plastic balls.
Wait, so me agonizing over leaving a casual text message unread until tomorrow morning, I've been treating that like a glass ball, but it's plastic. It's just plastic.
Exactly. Folding the laundry instead of pulling it out of the basket all week.
Plastic ball.
Vacuuming the rug. Plastic ball.
Eating a totally organic, home-cooked meal instead of just having cereal for dinner.
Plastic ball. If you drop a plastic ball, it bounces. Nothing shatters. When you are overwhelmed, you have full, complete permission to drop the plastic balls to protect the glass ones. As the saying goes in struggle care, you can't save the rainforest if you're currently drowning in depression.
You are allowed to drop the plastic balls. I think so many people really need to hear that. We spend so much dopamine and energy treating every single unfolded shirt like it's shattered glass.
And the shame from treating everything like glass is what paralyzes the ADHD brain in the first place. When you remove the shame, when you say, hey, this is just plastic, it's fine, you actually free up the executive function to tackle the things that truly matter.
That is so freeing.
So to bring this all together, I want to leave you with a final reframe.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time today talking about the heavy side of emotional dysregulation.
The shame spirals, the overwhelmed conductor, the pain of rejection.
Right. But that emotional intensity in ADHD isn't just a defect. It is a form of deep, beautiful sensitivity.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, the exact same neurology that makes emotional regulation hard, that hyper-responsive amygdala, is also the fuel for your profound empathy. It is the source of your rapid-fire creativity, your fierce authenticity, and your ability to love so passionately.
Wow.
You notice subtleties and connections in the world that neurotypical brains completely miss. So the goal of treatment, of therapy, of learning about your brain, it is not to figure out how to be calm and quiet and neurotypical all the time.
It's not about changing who you are.
No. The goal is simply to learn how to navigate your own beautiful waves without capsizing.
That is a perfect place to land. If this conversation helped you today, please follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or YouTube, and leave us a 5-star review or like, comment, and share the podcast. It helps more people in our community find these resources. We'll talk to you next time.